Hello and welcome to Fin24. Debt, debt and more debt. How are the millions, how are the masses of ordinary South African consumers already drowning in debt going to cope with the increases proposed by Minister Nene in his Budget 2015 speech? With me in studio today, I have Roger Brown, Chief Executive of debt counselling firm Credit Matters. Hello, Roger.
Hi there, Ms. Rika.
Roger, let's get straight to it. You deal with over-indebted South African consumers on a daily basis. We now see that Minister Nene's budget has pushed up fuel price by 80.5 cents per litre. How are the masses of people who are already drowning in debt, how are they going to cope with it?
Well, first of all, we're in an international slump in the oil price. And one was hoping that with the reduction in oil prices internationally, that there would be relief for motorists here in South Africa. Like everyone else in the world, prices are coming down, so everyone internationally is beginning to get the benefits. However, it seems like the budget has come at the wrong time, because they've seen it now as an easy way of refusing to allow the oil price to fall to its natural level, which is a lower level, but to take a little bit more for the state.
Take a little bit more for the state. In real terms, it's not 80.5 cents per litre. In real terms, we are looking at the net effect of this added fuel tax will be a staggering 17 billion rand. 17 billion rand extra that motorists will have to cough up this year. That's a huge amount. Where are South African consumers going to find it?
The problem really is if you take it in tax, then it is spent within the government fiscal policies and procedures and in their departments. And you're taking away from the efficient people, the people who are working hard in the streets, etc., who work hard for their money. And you're taking from businessmen and you're taking from people out there who are creating jobs. And you're now giving it to already bloated civil servants. So we have concerns about levels of debt as a result of that.
What measures do you see South African consumers who are over-indebted, what measures can they put in place to buffer these increases within their lives, within their daily lives? Because surely it's going to affect, first of all, their daily lives, and then the manner in which they go about it. I'd also like to look at the issue of service delivery. Is this increase going to affect service delivery protests? Do you think that's going to be an issue?
Well, we've got to ask the question, the man in the street after this budget, does he feel that his life's going to be any better as a result of a budget? Because surely that's what a budget should really be about, is giving people some sort of direction, some sort of financial footprint, which is going to show them how their lives are going to be better. That's what the state is required to do. Put forward a financial plan that's going to better our lives. And the concern is, having looked at this, despite a couple of increases in pensions that will be paid, etc., there's also a lot of bad news as well. So we're concerned that the people that are already over indebted are going to be further indebted as a result of Budget 2015.
Looking at the budget, something that struck me was the lack of detail. I thought Budget 2015 lacked detail. I thought it was very superficial. The detail, there was none of it. What do you think, as somebody again who deals with over-indebted consumers on a daily basis, in that light, what do you think was absent from Budget 2015?
Well, we were hoping that, because in debt counselling we see people who are both employed as well as people looking for jobs or have been retrenched and all the rest, we were hoping that this budget would put on the table a blueprint on how they were going to create these 6 million jobs that have been promised. To create 6 million jobs in 5 years, as was the election promise last year, would require 21,000 new jobs a week. Now, if they didn't do the 21,000 last week, then they've got to do even more the following week. It's a little bit like playing cricket. You've got to kind of get that run rate average up. But certainly the question right now is that's got to be paramount in our minds is how is the government addressing its own priorities, which is job creation in regard to this budget.
Do you find that the increase in personal tax, do you think that's going to have any increase on the standard of living of ordinary South Africans?
I think the personal tax one, they always knew that the people at the top brackets wouldn't feel it as much. And they believe that those people should make more sacrifices than the man in the street. However, there's already rumors that the VAT rate might go up later on, which would counter any attempt to try and rather tax those people who are wealthy.
we know that there was a definite link between over-indebtedness and the Marikana protests.
Yes.
Do you see that sort of scenario coming about again? Have we addressed the issue of debt? In fact, I don't think we addressed the issue of consumer debt in the budget very much at all.
No.
But are we anywhere closer to being in a better situation?
The only way they could have addressed it was the issue around job creation, because certainly people are over indebted because either they're not getting paid enough or alternatively they're not working at all. So the Marikana over indebtedness was definitely behind a lot of the anger and a lot of the violence and all the rest, is that people's position in life was being affected adversely by loan sharks, by people granting them credit. However, having said that, is that what people really need is they don't need handouts, they need jobs, and they need good jobs, and they need plentiful, a lot of them out there. So our concern is that the service delivery protests, which were based on people's need just to have a decent life, has not really been alleviated sufficiently by this budget.
We've had lots of feedback on our social media, and something I think is quite relevant is a Facebook posting by Matomi Signolo. He writes, "We keep hearing that we should tighten our belts. Some of us have tightened so much that we can't even breathe anymore." That seems to be the feeling of many South Africans on the ground. Do you think that this budget is made for the South African on the ground, the ordinary working class, hard-working class citizen?
Unfortunately, this budget is going to be known as the belt tightening budget. It could have been known as the jobs budget. So we're concerned that the government didn't take the opportunity to set out exactly how it was going to address the issue of jobs in South Africa. So certainly when it talks about belt tightening, it's really about the fact that the economy is not growing fast enough. And we don't believe that any government should be prepared to accept a 2% growth rate. Internationally, there's countries that have sustained 7%, 8%, 9% over vast periods of time. We're coming from a low base anyway. And this government should not be standing up and telling us that we can only achieve a 2% growth. They should not only be aiming higher, but they should be putting in place a way of actually doing that, both through encouraging private enterprises as well as through fiscal discipline, that get rid of corruption, as well as fiscal expenditure by the government services.
Now we know that Nene has said that his budget is very constrained and steps had to be taken to strengthen the fiscal position. But I do also think that not much was done to upset any of the major role players within the country. Do you think that that is why the growth rate is being as readily accepted at 2%?
Well, certainly people always talk, and in year in and year out we always hear about, oh, well, it was a very well tabled, balanced budget. Well, all budgets are going to be balanced. The question is whether they should or shouldn't be. Not so much in that the rands and cents should make sense, but really where they want to take the country. And our question is why, in an environment of over-indebtedness and job loss, should we be in a situation where the government's not giving greater clarity on job creation and helping people who in the streets so that they alleviate the causes of service protest, etc.
Can we ask the question as to if we are not going to be getting in what we need in terms of tax only, would it be fair to say that expenditure has to be cut? And we're not just talking about on paper and on television and in speeches and what the PR people are spinning. We need to see that our government cuts its expenditure, and a lot of that expenditure can be cut by rooting out corruption.
There is definitely corruption involved in the expenditure by government, but even more so is the laziness that we've seen in the civil service. I'm not saying that everyone is lazy, but I think that everyone who is involved with interfacing with the civil servant has got to ask the question whether these are the best people that could be sitting in these jobs and whether they are providing the efficient service that we as taxpayers are paying for and we demand. And our
no, we should demand. We don't demand. We should.
We should demand, yes. But the question really is not how big the budget is, but how efficient that budget is in the expenditure side. And our concern as debt counsellors is that it's okay to tell people they've got to pay higher taxes, but what is going on right now within the government assets and the government, including things like Eskom, Telkom, South African Airways, these kind of parastatals are all being badly managed or are having concerns around their management. And if that is the case, then what is the future for those people who are over-indebted, who don't have jobs, and are looking to the government to provide them with some sort of solution?
To conclude, Roger, as a debt counsellor, what tips or advice would you give the ordinary South African consumer out there to better cope with Minister Nene's 2015 budget?
Well, it's always about trying to get out of debt. So you've got to find ways, whether it be going into debt counselling or whether it be finding an extra job or whatever, but to better your life as much as you can. It looks unfortunately as if the government is not going to do it for you. You're going to have to find your own way, mate, because this is the way it works in 2015 in South Africa.
Thank you, Roger. I hope to have you back a couple of weeks or months down the line where we can actually review whether what was said on television and spun by all the PR officers, whether that has actually been implemented, because that is another thing that we should be looking at. It doesn't help that we put things down on paper, but it doesn't get implemented into real life.
Give us those 6 million jobs, Mr. Zuma, and everyone will be happy.
Thank you so much for listening to me and Roger Brown on Fin24 with regards to consumers, debt and budget 2015.